Hey guys, welcome back to Jowers Technology Solutions. So happy New Year, everybody! It's 2021 now. This is my first video for this channel for 2021. So today what we're going to do is do the pen testing, the network scanning and enumeration. That's the next video in the series of pen testing that I'm doing. We've already done one on OSINT, and then we did one on covering the legal aspects of pen testing. So today's going to be basically pretty simple. You have all kinds of different pen testing levels you can do. You have it to where you have a black box test where you know nothing about the network and you have to figure out how to access the network either physically and get to the local area network, or either remotely over the WAN. Either getting into their router somehow, their public IP address, or finding a way to their DMZ so that you can find a way to exploit a server on their DMZ or what have you. Black box is where you know nothing about it. GrayBox, you know something about it. Maybe the company will give you a public IP address to start researching, or even maybe credentials. They might say, hey, you're allowed on my network, and here are some credentials, and figure stuff out, find out what you can find out. White box testing, where you're basically given everything, all the information needed, what's on the network, what can be done, and then it's your job to go in there and find out if there's security hole, basically vulnerability scanning, where you go in there and find out what's open, what can be exploited. You might find things that they didn't know was there, because network changes things on the network change all the time. Whether people take off, unplug a switch or take off an access point or whatever. So in this scenario, what we're going to do is I'm on my Kali Linux box here, and this is kind of like a GrayBox test where we're allowed on the network, and we're given the ability to get there and start scanning. And so now what we're going to do is go in there and start figuring out what is there and what we can quote unquote report to the company so that they can know what's open and what we can tell them to fix. So right now I'm going to hop on there and I'm going to start going through it. The first thing you want to do whenever you get onto a network is do IP adder. And in the case of Kali Linux, I have a 100.128 address, so it's /24, so that means it's a Class C network. And I'm also going to do a IP route, and that's going to tell me what my gateway is, at least for Linux it will. So so far I know the gateway now, and I know my IP address. So now what we can do is, if you have Nmap, which Kali Linux should have Nmap on it, you can do Nmap, and then so the new version of Kali Linux has it where it kind of sort of makes it where you can just hit the arrow key and it does everything for you. Not a big fan of that right now, but anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and do a scan on this network address. Just say, pretend like that gray text isn't there, and I'm gonna do a /24. And depending on whether or not if they have a router or a firewall, that it all depends on what they have on their network as to how much you'll get back. In this case, since I already know what this network looks like since I built it for the video, I know that the 100.1 is the gateway address. I know obviously with the ports that shot back is doing some kind of DNS, and then you can access it through port 80 or 443. So I'm going to go ahead and let you know ahead of time. This is kind of related to pen testing and my just opinion about it, is if you have a firewall or a router running port 80, either disable it, or if you can't disable it for whatever, you can disable on most network devices, but if you can't, then find you a new one, because if anybody's able to get on your network and then start sniffing around and somebody tries to log in to that device over port 80, they can possibly sniff your credentials and therefore break into the network piece of it. So anyway, I'm just going to put that to rest on the side, but I just wanted to point that out. So anyway, so we know we have the gateway, we have all these ports running on it, and then we have another one, 100.128, and we don't know exactly what that is, because all the well-known common ports are filtered out, or closed rather. And so now what we're going to do is I'm going to say, okay, let's go take a deeper look at that. I'm going to do a TACO, and it's going to fingerprint the OS, and I need to be root. And this may take just a second. Alright, here we go. So now it gave me the ports again, and it's also giving me a host name. So we have a possible host name, CRFW TAC R1. and obviously gives the IP address again. And we see VMware. So what the VMware means is probably a virtual machine. And then let's see here, what else do we have? It says just guessing, FreeBSD, so it's possibly FreeBSD. And then what else do we have? And then it says one hop, so we know that there's no other network devices between it. All right, and then so with that information right there, we can go ahead and come over here to our network map and start mapping it out. And so I've already built the network map, so I'm just going to hit the back button or the undo button. And so we know that this device is here. We know the IP address. And then what I'm also going to do is, and this is what you should do with anytime you're enumerating a network, scanning and enumerating, you should always document it, build your own network map. And so right here, I know it's running port 53, I know it's running port 80, I know it's running port 443. So if I ever get lost in the network somehow, then I know that I can go back and look at this map, and I know what IP address is there on what device, and I can see what ports are running on it. And then we can also throw in there possible FreeBSD. All right, so from there, let's go ahead and see what else there is. And see, there's also the possibility that the firewall is blocking traffic, so you can also run another Nmap scan with the TAC PN, and I'll show you what that looks like. And what TAC PN does is it turns off host discovery, so if there's any kind of anything blocking host discovery, it just bypasses it. And you can hit the enter button if you want to see the progress percentage right there on Nmap. All right, so what do we have now? All right, so now we have, okay, so it's bringing back the firewall again, and also it's showing us some more stuff. So now we have a 104, we have a 120, we have a 125, and we have a 129. Okay, so we don't know what all this is just yet, but we know that it's on the same network, and then we also see this got VMware on it, so that's again possible virtual machines. And then we see other stuff like SSH, and then RDP. And then we scroll down a little bit further, and we have a good bit of stuff open on this guy. So you can always go and look for exploits. That's not part of this in the scope of this video. This is just me telling you, hey, this is how you scan it, and this is how you can find open ports, and then get pushed on from there in future videos. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna scroll back up. Well, actually, I got all my paint here, so I'm gonna go ahead and come over here and type in. Let's see here, host. And by the way, guys, this is a great site to go to. You can use it to draw network maps. And then, so what I'm also going to do, without getting too lost in the sauce, I'm going to go ahead and do some OS fingerprinting. So we know that 104 is there, so let's go ahead and do a fingerprint on 104. And it's going to pop up the same information, but it also should give us an idea of what OS is running. Perfect. Okay, so right here, OS details, Linux 3.10 through 4.11. So we know this is possibly a Linux distro of some sort. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll go ahead and mark it over here as well. So I'm going to drag it over here, and then I'm going to go ahead and add the IP address in. And then I'm going to also do a /24, and I'm going to say port 22 is open. And then since the Linux penguin is inside the PC, I'm just going to leave it at that. All right, and then let's do the next one. So this is why it's always a good idea to kind of copy this stuff and put it into a notepad. You want to have a document saying basically all the IPs and ports that are open and the OSs that it's possibly running. And you also want to have a network map so you can remember how it's logically connected. And so anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and do the 120 now. All right, so what do we have now? So again, okay, so this is running 3389, and so we can assume that it's a Windows PC, but keep in mind that Linux can run that if you wanted it to. So just keep that in mind. But and then also right here it says Microsoft Windows, but it says just guessing. So just keep that in mind. Chances are it's probably a Windows box, but just make sure whenever you go to document your stuff. All right, so now we're going to go here and do Windows. And then I'm going to come in here and do the same thing I did a second ago. I'm going to do 10.0.100, and that was a 120. I'm going to do /24, and I'm going to say 3389 is open. So in other words, if you can find any exploits that are good against that port running RDP, then you can possibly launch exploits against that. All right, and then let's go ahead and do the next one. So that was 120, and then what was next? 125. And I'm going to, again, never assume anything. You should always verify. But being as this right here is also port 22, I'm going to assume it's a Linux box. But I'm going to go ahead and scan it anyway. So let's do that. So let's do 125. And another thing to keep in mind that I haven't mentioned is whenever you're doing a pen test, keep in mind that the customer may have some kind of host intrusion or network intrusion detection. And so anytime you run Nmap, that they can probably see it, because their systems that are already pre-designed or pre-configured to pick up on things like Nmap scans or trying to brute force something or what have you. So just keep that in mind. If you're doing a white box or a gray box test, and obviously the customer knows that you're there, then I wouldn't say it mattered as much. Obviously, you don't want to disrupt any of their services or any of their anything that they have in place, like email or file servers or what have you. You don't want to disrupt their services while you're doing the pen test. That's why there's always some kind of scheduling involved whenever you're doing a pen test, so that you can either do it after hours or whatever, because that's the point of the legal documentation. Going back to my previous video, is that you don't want to cause problems for the company unless it's within the scope, and if it's within the scope, then okay. But that's just something to think about whenever you're doing a pen test. Anyway, so pushing back to the scanning. So we have a 100.125 here, and then again, that's open port SSH. And so I'm just going to do the quick way of doing this here. I'm going to hit copy and paste. I'm going to drag him down. And that is 125, so we're going to go ahead and backspace this and then put 25 in there. And so we know that's there, and then again, we know it's a Linux box, or possibly a Linux box, because it says running Linux 3.x. Alright, and then last but not least, we have, I think it was a 129. Yeah, 129 right there, and it's running these ports, so it's likely a Windows box. So let's go ahead and scan that as well. Alright, so it says running Windows 2012. Okay, so they got a little bit better information out of that. So we can go ahead and come over here and hit copy on this, drag it down, and then it's got several ports running. So with Windows, these are the more or less common ports that you can use. The one that you probably want to pay attention to is the 3389. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. But yeah, I would pay attention to the more easily exploitable ports, and so keep that in mind. I'm just going to leave that one open, or put that on the network map for further exploitation later on. All right, so what else can we do at this point? So we got our network map, and well, the other thing that I like doing is so it's got those little points on the network map that you can actually drag down to the PC, and so this allows you to keep an accurate logical flow of your network map. There we go. Let me do it. All right, there we go. So for the scope of this video, this is where I'm going to stop at. Just keep in mind that depending on what the scope of the test is that you could be doing less of this, or you can be doing more of this. In this case, the only thing I'm doing is the customer let me on the network, and I'm going to find what hosts are live on the network and what ports are open on those. It's kind of like somebody saying, hey, figure out a way to get in my house, but don't go in my house, if that makes sense. So you're allowed to go up there, you're allowed to say, find the address of the house, you're allowed to walk in the yard, and you're allowed to start poking around for different ways to look in the house. Sounds a little creepy, but that's basically what we're doing on the network. So anyway, guys, in future videos, I'll be doing this, doing more of this, and also adding in extra stuff. I want this to be kind of a starter for pen testing, and it goes much deeper than this. Everybody knows that with the SolarWinds deal, obviously, I don't know any more than what the news has put out so far, because I haven't been paying a whole lot of attention to it due to being busy with other things. But that being said, just keep in mind that somebody, could be in there for years, You never know. I had a customer that I ended up, I didn't do a pen test for him, but I was more or less going in there finding out what was going on, and they ended up having a small breach, and I was able to close it up. But you never know. For the purposes of pen testing, this is the reason why you want to be pen tested, because you want to find out what's in there and what you need to tell the customer about in order to fix. So just keep that in mind. But anyway, guys, this is all I got for today. I appreciate you watching the video. Please subscribe to my channel, and said in the previous video, I'm not doing this for fame again, but the support does absolutely help. So subscribe to the channel. Please like it and comment on it if you will, and y'all have a good day. Thank you.